Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prodcast channel where we talk about career in tech and immigration to the US. My name is Anna Naumova, and I'm a former product manager at Apple, and I'm excited to share my knowledge and insights with you. I want to be a product manager, but what type of companies should I apply to? Should I become a product manager at large company like Apple or maybe startup? What best fits for me? How often do you ask yourself this question? Personally, I ask a lot, even though I had experience in both areas. Let's figure it out today and be prepared for your next role as a startup product manager. Please subscribe to the channel, like, comments if you find it useful. And if you are interested in supporting my channel, becoming a sponsor, or scheduling a call with me, please go to annanaumova.com for more information. I will leave the link to my website in the description to this video. Okay, let's get started to introduce my wonderful guest today, Polina Marchenko, a product leader, a founder of 2 startups, and also a product coach. I've been following Polina on LinkedIn for years, and today she accepted invitation to share her inspiring story with me and with you. Hi, Polina. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited. And I've
Thank
been
you
following you
for
also for
accepting.
years. So
Finally, we are together. And yeah, this is an honor for me to have Pauline on this episode where we're going to
honor is all
discuss
mine.
product management in startup. All right, Paulina, I know that you're pretty tied to product management and you're a product manager for a while. Like, can you please tell me about your career path and about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So, yeah, I've been in product management for a while, but my career started not quite in product management. I consider my career kickstart was in a startup accelerator program in Germany, where I was supporting as a marketing intern or something like that, the startup founder. And this was the crucial experience for me because it absolutely changed my view on what I want to do in my life and how do I approach my career and what kind of companies I want to work at. And that's why it was like really like the kickstart of my career. And once again, in Germany, it was my first role in product management. I think it was 2012 when I joined an e-commerce startup. It was not the early stage startup. I think when I joined, we were already like 80 people, something like that. It was a great experience, but within this year, I got another idea of what I want to do in life, and I decided to start my own company. And I was running it from Berlin and San Francisco for several years. And in a couple of years, there was a moment where I had to decide between a startup and my family. It was a long story, maybe for another podcast. And I decided for my family. So it was a hard decision, but it meant for me that I had to relocate again, now from Berlin to San Francisco. And then I found another role in another early stage startup. I think I joined as a probably 5th hire or maybe 6th hire, and the first and the only product manager. So before that, CEO was responsible for product vision and other product related things. And it's been a fun journey, and I was working there for another couple of years, and then I decided to take a creative break. And after that, I started my latest company in education space. And I would say the product experience that I got from the very early days in the e-commerce startup were very helpful throughout my whole journey. So I was building and building on, and I think that's why I'm here where I am now.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let's maybe start from scratch, from the beginning. Who is a product manager at startup?
Yeah, I think, okay, let's maybe do one step back and define a startup, because I think startup can be such a broad term. And as I said, I've been working in early stage startup, and I think like most of people refer to startup as an early stage startup, but there are actually startups which are much bigger, right? So and the role of the product manager transforms throughout different phases of the startup growth. So let's start, for example, come back to your question, what is the role of a product manager in the early stage startup? Once again, from my own experience, when I was hired as a first PM, it meant for me basically, leading all the efforts related to product and beyond. So you have a very broad scope of what you're working on. So you're responsible for the whole product, for the product vision. And sometimes product also includes multiple parts. Like in my case, it was a product user-facing app and data platform. So you're actually working not on just mobile app, but you're trying to, overlook both. So that's why I think specifically product manager in a startup is very close to this, definition of mini CEO. I think this is the closest that you can get to this description, because when you're saying, hey, yeah, product manager is a mini CEO, it's definitely not the case when you're working in the bigger organization.
Yeah,
because you're more focusing on a very small scope, Yeah, so that's why, once again, in early stage startups, product manager is almost like a mini CEO, or working very closely with the CEO of the company and with the executive suite.
Especially the first hire, the first product manager. It's definitely
Exactly.
a lot of responsibilities for this role.
Yeah,
right?
and you are also wearing many hats, so beyond product management. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I do have experience working at startup and being a first product manager and the second product manager. And I remember, yes, I did a lot of things like not related to product management, actually. So I did marketing, I did sales, I did I don't know. So just like, I always found the in office for my company I worked for. So I was like in HR, I was hiring. I was doing everything. So that's
exactly. To flip the coin, when I was a founder and CEO, I was also doing a lot of product work, but all the other parts as well. So it's like very very to the founding role, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, what's some key goals and responsibilities of product manager at startup?
Once again, I think also very broad. So it depends on the stage of the startup. So if you're
let's maybe break it down. Like, for example,
Yeah.
let's talk about like early stage, like pre-seed or seed startup, and maybe like later. Let's maybe divide into two parts, like groups.
Yeah, once again, so based on my knowledge or my experience, when you're pre-launch, it's a lot of problem discovery. So you're really focusing on market research, talking to future users, conducting many interviews, figuring out also like looking what is the competitive landscape, and trying to create as soon as possible your MVP and to ship it and to learn and iterate as soon as possible. So it's like more efforts related to like really shipping the first version and learning and iterating as soon as possible.
Finding product market fit. Yes,
exactly. And once you've found product market fit, then like this is again the next story. So then you're thinking, okay, so how can we scale from here? How can we generate leads? What are the features? Then before product market fit, it's kind of like a totally different story. Once you have product market fit, it means you have many users. It means probably you have many requests. Probably you also have by this time generated many bugs or tech debt. So like your scope a little bit washing out around these areas. And but it's still a lot of different things that you're supposed to do. And moving on, so if your startup is growing and you're creating more and more versions and you're still hitting the ground with acceptance in the market, then I think this is the time when probably your team will be scaling as well, where when the product team will be growing, and where the specific areas of responsibility in product team will be more clearly defined than before. So then you probably have a growth product management team, or at least product manager who's focused on your growth. Then maybe you probably by this time you have a complex app. Then you have a specific areas of focus also divided between the teams. So from this large scope, from kind of like handled by one person, but maybe with a relatively small impact scale, because you in the beginning have no users, you're going to more define specific areas, but larger scope and larger scale.
I'm just thinking from the candidate perspective. Like, for example, I'm a product manager and I'm looking for a job. And for example, just want to wrap up that I understand this correctly. If I'm looking for a job as an early stage startup, pre-launch, so I have to be kind of like have this exploratory mindset. I need to do a lot of research, like market research, user research, and have a lot of hypotheses to test, to validate, like very quickly, even without even building the product. I can do prototypes, right? Or
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then if the startup goes to the like later stage, for example, the startup already found product market fit, it's more like iteration, working with developers, launching features, getting feedback, getting data analysis, and like experimenting more. And the next step means that this startup is growing and the feature is divided, like the product is divided into multiple product managers. You need to be more collaborative with other product managers and align to the specific product goal and be responsible for your specific part of the product. Yes.
Yeah. No, I think
correct?
you summarized it. Yeah, I think you summarized it pretty well. Yeah.
And you, what do you like most? Are you more early stage product manager or like later stage?
I think given my experience, probably I've had the most experience in the early stages of a startup life cycle. The same time, it's like not all that rosy. I mean, it sounds exciting, building from scratch is something really addictive. But at the same time, once again, I'm looking from the perspective of a new PM who is trying to find a role in the early stage startup, it also means you are basically alone, You don't have a team you can learn from. You don't have a senior product manager who can coach you or mentor you. So it could be very challenging. So I experienced it in my startup in San Francisco, where I literally was feeling that I'm hitting the edge of my knowledge and I really would love to learn from somebody else, but there is no one who is like as focused on product in my startup as I am. So that's why at some point I also started a community of product managers that I could find a mentor from somewhere else. But thanks God, there are many communities now already, so you can find the mentors. And if you decide that you're ready for a steep learning curve, you're generalist, you want to wear many hats, it's a great experience. But nonetheless, I would really recommend you finding a mentor from outside, so you don't feel so lonely in this journey.
Does it mean that the product manager at startup, like an early stage startup, has to be more advanced, like more experienced?
I'm not sure if it has to be this way. Once again, I think it's very personal type of experience. Maybe junior PMs who have a great background, I don't know, maybe they're subject matter experts in a specific industry. It could serve them super well, even as an early stage junior PM being in an early stage startup. But generally, given that the scope is large, and you have to wear many hats, it depends on what you want. If you want this type of experience, you want fast, you want lots of autonomy, you want to experiment, you want to have this direct experience working with the CEO and so on and so forth. I mean, you have to try it out. You don't have to be super experienced in order to try this. The same goes for founders. It doesn't mean that you have to be working 10 years in the industry in order to start your own company. Same is for PMs. If you feel it's the right thing to do, if there is like a good chemistry with the startup, you believe in the product, try it out. This is the best way to learn.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that it depends on the founder, because if the founder is, for example, like managing, multi-managing, and controlling everything, that's probably less advanced product manager will be the good fit for this founder, because founder will cover a lot of product management role, and the first product manager will be probably the project manager at the early stage startup. So just like because strategic decision will be made by the founder, and product manager needs just to execute this vision. And if the founder is maybe more like give it freedom to the product manager has to be more experienced to make this strategic decision. We will talk about relationship between founder and product managers a little bit later, but I want to just wrap up the personality of the product manager of this startup. What's some key like important qualities the product manager should have?
In general, or for early stage startup?
If we focus more on like early stage startup, let's keep that.
I think one of the key things or key skills that help me a lot is kind of being able to make decisions with imperfect knowledge. So
there's a lack of information, right?
Yeah, and for example, if you're working on a really innovative product, there is not much information that you can gather. So you have to make bets, and you have to be ready to try it out and fail and try again, but decisions fast. So I think this is important. So if you feel that, hey, I feel much better when I know like the most information and all this stuff, maybe you will feel uncomfortable doing it again and again.
So make decision in uncertainties, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. What else? I think that maybe be proactive. Yeah, be proactive is pretty important for product managers.
Yeah, I think for product managers in general, I think it's important to be proactive, like be a good storyteller. What else? I think probably, the whole communication with the team is very important. And in the early stage startup, especially, because you are literally, early stage startups are often the ones who are looking for funding. So you'll probably be the one who's helping your CEO to craft the story around the products and why you're doing the things you're doing them and what is the bigger vision. So that's why I think storytelling is one of the important skills.
Yeah. So it feels that the main difference between product manager at large companies is being able to take a risk and make decision and uncertainty. Like for example, if you work at large companies like Apple, for example, you have a lot of data. And you have a lot of other teams who can support you, a lot of people who can give you advice, etc. Like maybe past experience, past learnings, etc. So you can, and also you cannot take a risk. You cannot just go and experiment as you want. Yeah. Like, oh, let's change the button at Apple, like a login button. Yeah. You need to walk through a lot of discussion and approvals to make experiment. But at early stage startup, you have kind of this freedom to experiment, and you need to take this risk and go through that without actually like the data.
Yeah, and one thing to add is you really have to be very hands-on and really enjoy this stuff, because you will have to figure out most of the things by yourself. So there is literally no one who paved the road for you. if there is something that has to be done, there is probably the one person who has to do it is you. You know?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, I know what kind of advice to give to our viewers today, subscribers. So if you are more independent product manager and you want to experiment more and take a risk, go to startups. If you need protection and if you're maybe more kind of humble in making your decision and less confident, maybe less confident about your experience, go to large companies and talk about your decision with multiple other product managers before you can actually make it done. All right. So let's maybe talk about, I want to talk about difference between large and product manager in large companies and startups. So I maybe give you some hints about my experience working at big companies like Apple, and maybe you can oppose me from the startup product manager. So like how life of a product manager at Apple at large company look like. For example, yes, a lot of communication and a lot of meetings. So that's what I had in my life. So it looks like 90% of my time I spending by talking to other teams, other people's, also creating presenting these to the leadership, to the team. So all my work, it looks like just communication, talking, blah, 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 all the time. And I actually didn't spend a lot of time on hands-on work. So I didn't do like personally like prototyping, like sketching, because I did have designers who were able to do that, but I really like doing like prototypes, sketching, design, everything else. So analysis, because we had data analysts to do that, so I didn't need to dig deeper into details and spend whole day like getting data. So how about startup product manager?
Well, I must agree that I also spend most of my days in the meetings. There are less people, but still the number of meetings kind of like doesn't decrease. I don't know why. But in terms of getting help, you're absolutely right. So I had to learn SQL with my head of data science, and I'm so grateful for her helping me just to be able to dig into my own data, because I didn't have data analysts on my disposal. For example, we had a designer, but still we were working together with the designer to some extent to kind of co-create the mockups and some materials. So there is a lot of collaboration, similarly to a bigger corporation, but once again, there is less help that you'll be getting. So you have to, be resourceful.
Where to find time? I really remember like 90% of my time I spent on the meetings, negotiation, like communication, collaboration, blah, 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 all day. And how do you find time to do like other type of work if you're on the meeting all day?
Yeah, so at some point I was literally blocking off my calendar for my personal time. And I think I know of many product managers who are doing so. Because literally, if you are not doing this for yourself, somebody else will grab the spot that you have free on your calendar and have another meeting with you, And it was, when I started doing it, it was very helpful for me. So finally, I got some time for deep work, where I could actually spend time on learning SQL, analyzing data, or thinking more about the strategy. Because if you're not doing this and really you are swapped into the meetings, some important part of your work is actually suffering. So when are you supposed to actually think deep and thorough about decisions that you're supposed to be making if you're always communicating with somebody else? So you have to be kind of striking the right balance of getting this whole input from others, filtering it, prioritizing, and still finding the time for deep work. Because without that, I'm not even sure how you're sustainable as a product manager.
Yeah, that's a great advice to block time for deep work in your calendar. So I did the same. I did block. For me, it's better to block like several hours per day, like 2-3 hours, depends. But some people I know that they block all day. Like for example, Monday is my day for deep work. What works for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in our company, I think we also had not just PMs were suffering from abundance of meetings. So at some point we had a policy. I think one of the days in the week where no meeting,
No meeting.
yeah, no meeting Thursday or something like that. So nobody had meetings, but otherwise I just had also blocked a couple of hours per day, and because I cannot, even for deep work, I cannot be working efficient and be focused longer than for a couple of hours.
Yes.
Somebody will, something else will distract me, and it is still not efficient. So I was trying to kind of optimize for efficiency, and that's why also blocking a couple of hours actually works the best.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, based on my experience, even at Apple or at Zella and previous company, we did have a few hours per day for non-meeting time. And for lunchtime, for example, it was blocked in my calendar, but it didn't work actually because people knew that is, oh, it's no meeting time, but you have a free time. I know that I can book a meeting at this time. And yes, I did have a lot of meetings on my non-meeting time. And actually at Apple, it was even worse because it was blocked. And because of the most important meeting, it was like above the meeting. So I have overlaps. I had a lot of overlaps, and I needed to figure it out. Like, which meeting is more important? Which meeting I can skip or ask someone to attend instead of me, and attend another meeting. So that was,
But I think it is. Yeah, it is something to do also with the company culture, because once again, in our company, what I really liked is that people actually respected the boundaries. So, somebody would try to book my time, and when I tell this person a couple of times that this is the time when I prefer not to have meetings, they will stop doing this, So, for example, engineers were asking me not to arrange meetings with them, I think in the afternoon, for example, on certain days. So I would respect them and will not do that, So because everybody needs time for deep work.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about relationship between CEO or founder and let's say first product manager. How does it look for you? What the relationship should be between them? We've already talked about the level of experience. Like, for example, if the product manager is less experienced, they might have more control over from the founder. And if it's a high experienced product manager, they might have more freedom. So what do you think about that?
No, I think it makes sense. So first of all, the reason why CEOs probably decide to hire a PM in the first place is when they are becoming stretched into different directions. Because in the beginning, usually the product, the CEO is carrying the role of the product leader, So he is the one who is coming up with the vision and all this stuff. So I think when they feel, okay, I have to focus on other things, this is when the first product manager comes in. And in terms of the micromanaging versus giving autonomy, I think it probably depends on the personality of the CEO and product manager. And I also did many mistakes in terms of how should I signal if I need more autonomy, because it is your CEO, So it's like the boss of the bosses, So how are you supposed to tell him that you need more autonomy? So sometimes I would not say anything, although I felt I'm ready to be less controlled or something like that. So that's why I think it is responsibility of both sides, of your manager, in this case CEO, but also your responsibility to make sure that this relationship work for both of you. So that this type of relationship allows you for growth, so that you're not stagnating in this project management role. So you're not only kind of defining the roadmap and priorities for the next couple of weeks, but actually are responsible also for the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
maybe based on your experience, how did you find this balance between being autonomous or being micromanaged? Like I can give you some example. As a CEO, I see this direction, but I hire a product manager. I trusted my product manager, but our vision is different. Like for example, became different, and my product manager wants to go this direction. I, as a CEO, want to go another direction, and so how to reduce this friction, yeah, between maybe very proactive product manager or an opposite. So I want help from my product manager to navigate me, to help me, like, and my product manager is not active at all. I didn't give me any advice. So like how to
Yeah.
find this balance?
Yeah, no, I think once again, in my company, what was great, we had a policy of we agree to disagree and move on.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, so we pretty often we had conversations not only between the PM and CEO, but also with engineering and with data team involved, where we were kind of like all heading into different directions. And basically, we were thinking or like looking at who has the best arguments, like what kind of data, supportive data we have for one or another decision. And then I think it's important to think, okay, what are, I personally call them um, irreversible decisions or reversible decisions. So what are
Mm-hmm.
the decisions in terms of the product that can be actually, even if we disagree, can we actually test it pretty simple at low cost and fast? Then we don't have to spend all these hours on discussing like who is right, who is wrong.
Yeah.
So I think this is perfect, situation with a startup, which probably you cannot do so easily in a larger organization. But in a startup, it works as a charm. So you basically, once you hit the wall, you're like, okay, so how can we test it? So how can we test it so we actually know which direction to move on? So,
Mm-hmm.
and once again, because this idea or this policy of agree to disagree came from the CEO, everybody was supporting this, and it was rather simple to resolve kind of product related conflicts. So
Yeah.
sometimes I would be, researching something or like conducting user interviews with my designer, and who would come up with a great idea, great concept, and so on. So excited to present it to others, and we present it to others, and not exactly the response that we were hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
Like our concept gets teared down, happens. But once again, then you're coming back to okay, what is the way to test it? Let's
Yeah.
test it, gather data, move on. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great advice to just like if you have arguments, just stop arguing, go and test it, and it will be even faster sometimes. Like to learn from your test, and you'll get some knowledge than to meet up together and spend time on meetings. Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you. So, okay, let's talk about junior product manager or product managers without experience. We also touched a little bit that actually everyone can be product manager at startup. So, for junior PMs, what should they do? Like, or which qualities should they show on interviews to be hired by startups?
First of all, this is my personal opinion. You have to show that you have built something. It is not
Mm-hmm.
really quality. You have to show experience. And although everybody is, also larger corporations would probably not hire a junior PM who has no experience. So that's why I actually started my last
Mm-hmm.
company side project to help people build side projects in teams, and emulate this type of experience, even if you didn't have the PM role before. And we had amazing, like literally amazing impact, because people who, for example, were working in investment banking, who had nothing to do with product management, but who were like really felt, okay, this is the way I want to move to, they put themselves in the position of being a kind of mini founder of a product, were working for a couple of months, and then they were able to leverage this experience during the interviews, because when they were asked behavioral questions like how did you resolve conflict with the engineer, or like
I have
can
never
you
worked with engineers, right?
exactly
Yeah.
then they can say, hey, well, we were trying to do this and that, and this is what happened, or I don't know, like 100 different questions, they were able to talk from their experience. Even if it's not your PM role, which you were paid for, you can
Yeah.
simulate this experience. So that's why for startups, it is especially important, because this experience of building from scratch is the most relevant for PMs in the startup field. Because in the corporate world, you usually, maybe some PMs are lucky to build a new feature from scratch, but most of the PMs probably will start on the project which be already running for quite a while, and they will be tweaking
Yeah.
it and so on and so forth. So I
Just
think
doing
this kind of
some little
experience,
improvements all the
exactly. So
time. Yeah.
this experience of starting from scratch and like showing off how you did it, it's like super important and valuable when you're interviewing for early stage startups.
That's true. That's true. So, how about domain knowledge? Is it important for junior
Mm,
PMs or even PMs at startup?
I think domain knowledge is always a benefit. It's like definitely beneficial that you're able to show your passion for specific, industry or specific product, because you just have better knowledge, into the space. So you'll probably have less time ramping up and learning like everything what's going on like around your product, your competition, like what your customers love and would love to have, and so on and so forth. So I think domain knowledge, or even if this is kind of like slash domain knowledge slash knowledge of a specific product, maybe. So if you're applying for early stage startup or like just a startup and they have just launched something, and this is my strategy honestly now. So I'm also trying to get a new PM role. And my strategy is, first of all, focusing on the industry. So I learn the most during the job search process, not once I have joined the company, And at the same time, I'm trying to test the products where I want to apply, so that I can actually reach out on a more personal basis and say, hey, I have tested this, like I have tested your product. Do you want my feedback? So kind of, to show that you're curious. And I think
Yeah.
curiosity is also very, very, very important for PMs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think like this year, during the recession and tough time of layoffs and layoffs and all that shrink in the market and tech market, I think domain knowledge is becoming the criteria number one, like the requirements actually, because what I see not only for junior PMs, not only for product managers, startups, just if you don't have domain knowledge, there are a lot of people who do have domain knowledge. So it's definitely a benefit right now. So the advice for junior PMs, if you want to be a product manager, start with the domain that you're already familiar with. Or try to get this domain knowledge. Even if you, I don't know, if you go like applying to be a product manager at games, you have to be like, you have to play games. You have to love games.
Absolutely.
I don't play games, and I've never applied for games. I'm not a game product manager, but I do like fitness, sport, running, like other events. And I have a good domain knowledge of like being a runner or running marathons or doing like fitness, health, etc. So that's my domain knowledge. I would rather
Yeah,
apply to.
definitely. Yeah, and just to add to your point about domain knowledge is, very often like people who are trying to break into products uh, already have some kind of experience in other, in other roles.
Yeah.
So it's important to keep in mind that although you're trying to kind of like, absolutely a new role for yourself, it doesn't mean that you're starting from scratch in this case. You have to, you have to be building on the existing experience already, building on your domain knowledge already. So if you were a marketer, just say, hey, I'm a PM with I don't know, marketing eye for things, just like try to leverage everything that you have, literally. Domain knowledge is one of this, but literally everything.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So let's talk about job search. If someone is interested in becoming a product manager at startup, where can they look for job opportunities at startup? We all know about LinkedIn, but how about startups? Does it work? AngelList, okay. It's they were like they have rebranding.
Yeah, well found. Something
yes, yeah. Like I will attach link in the description.
Yeah. Another one, if you are maybe a female PM, go to Alpha.
Alpha, okay.
Yeah, Alpha is a community for just female founders and professionals. So many startups there. So they are also having a job board. And the last one that I had in mind, let me think.
YC, I know that YC, Y Combinator, has the job list as well, right?
Yeah, 500 startups, so 500 global.
So go to incubators, yeah.
Yeah, definitely go to incubators. Also, some VCs have a list of their startups. Wait a second, I had another one in mind, but I forgot about it. I forgot it. I will maybe let you know
no
later.
worries. Yeah. You can send me the links and I will attach to this video description. Okay. So let's maybe talk about from the different perspective. Look at this topic from the different perspective, from the perspective of the startup founders. So in which stage should they hire a first product managers? So how to define that I need a product manager in my startup?
It depends. So for example, when I was a founder myself, I was running my startups for startup for 3.5 years, and we didn't hire any product manager.
Why?
So because I was doing the work collaboratively with my 2 other co-founders, one engineer and another designer. So we were kind of from the very beginning a tight team, and it worked. Now in hindsight, I would have probably benefited more if I have hired a product manager earlier, but it kind of worked this way too. So in my last role, working at a startup, I think my CEO felt the urge to hire a PM, I think after 6 or 8 months into the intense work of a startup. They have just raised funding, so when you can afford it, it's probably beneficial to have an additional person looking over the product.
And how did they look for? How did they look for the PM? Your
what
friends?
Do you mean, how?
I mean, like, did they post this job somewhere, or did they ask for friends, like recommendations?
I think they posted, but the fun thing is, so in my career, I have never applied for a job. So, and this was also one of the experiences. So they have probably posted the job somewhere, because when I met the founder, I met him on LinkedIn. I just reached out to him directly and basically told him that I have a domain expertise, back to the domain expertise, running a startup in the same field as he does. And I would just love to share my experience with him. And he was very receptive. So we met for a coffee chat in San Francisco. And in the end of the coffee chat, he basically said, hey, by the way, we're interviewing for a PM role.
Wow.
Would you be interested to interview?
So randomly. So you didn't see their job posting,
no.
but you just like decided to network with this person, right?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
so randomly. Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm thinking, wow, it's like totally changed my life. That one, that one cold message on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why I'm all for serendipity and basically engineering possibilities for yourself. So do not wait for anything to come easy. You cannot expect something like this to happen. You just
Right.
cannot. But you have to engineer this type of experience by trying to provide value for others. And this is, once again, because it worked once, and I think it worked already many times for me, like in different situations. This is how I also approach the job search,
Hmm.
also these days. Try to
Yeah, yeah.
provide value. And,
Provide value.
sometimes magic
And
happens.
how do you provide value? I know that you're already providing a lot of value speaking on this episode, but how else? Yeah.
Yeah, different things. So in my case, for example, now I I'm like for myself, I was trying to learn about the education industry. So I
Hmm.
started doing this research into the industry and seeing what kind of companies, what are they innovating on, trying to group them, segment them to understand better the education space. And once it grew so big that I realized there is a lot of work that I invested in, I decided to share it publicly for others because I was thinking, okay, so from one perspective, there are other job searchers, like job seekers, who might benefit from the knowledge of knowing different companies. Maybe they also want to go into the same space. So totally fine with me. From another perspective, I was thinking, okay, maybe there are some companies that I would love to reach out to. And this is actually an engineered opportunity to reach out to them. So I actually did reach out to several and saying, hey, I have conducted this research and I have included your company because I think you're like very innovative. Um, would love to be connected. So how can you say no to this?
Hmm.
So not being arrogant, but if you were
Yeah.
like trying to provide the value, sometimes
Yeah.
it's win-win. So you're optimizing for win-win.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. That's a great advice for networking. Yeah. Networking is very, very expensive, I can say. Important, yeah. Might have,
yeah,
yeah, it might be expensive if you invite people to retreat, yoga retreat somewhere like to Costa Rica. But yeah, usually, yeah, it's very important in life.
you see, you're providing value by having this podcast. At the same time, you're making yourself more visible to potential employers because you're an active PM, so you're sharing your knowledge. So somebody who might have seen you on LinkedIn would like to discover something more of what you have
Hmm.
done, and it's public. For other
Yeah,
PMs who are looking for a job, it's not public. So how are people supposed to find them and know that
yeah,
they're great? you know
that's true. That's true. And also, I'm learning. So I learn from my guest. Each guest gives me insights that I consider, think, and sometimes I apply. Sometimes, like after like conversation, I felt, "Oh, all right, Anna, you should do that." Yeah, so that's super insightful for me.
yeah.
Not only for like visibility,
Win-win,
it's just
you
it's
see.
a win-win. Definitely, it's a win-win. Yeah, and I like it. I definitely enjoy it. That's my hobby. That
Awesome.
becoming maybe my job in the future. All right, Polina, maybe my last question is something that I haven't asked you. Maybe you would like to recommend our listeners or like viewers today. Maybe someone wants to become a product manager or looking for a job as a product manager. Maybe, like any recommendation you can give.
Yeah, I just have to say it once again. I think resume is highly overrated, still overrated, especially overrated during this tough times finding a job. That's why it's like, guys, just try to be creative. I know
Resume is
it's
overrated.
like a,
Yeah, it has to
yeah,
be a title. Yeah, it has to be on a
yeah.
title.
Yeah, I mean, it's might sound like a cliche to say things like think out of the box, be creative, but you really have to think out of the box. And another thing, what I continue telling all aspiring PMs is once again build something, build something, build something, because while you're building, you're really not only building a product, you're building up your confidence. You are preparing yourself actually for a job, because I mean, have you seen doctors who have just done like a course on, on something, and tomorrow they
Coursera,
are
how to be
operating?
a doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like PMs are also like a very important job. It's crucial for
Absolutely.
for many companies, and I mean for many great products to be out there on the market. So why do we treat it with less importance in terms of the experience? So I know there is something like a product school. It's great, but it's not enough. You have to build something. So, and it could be something very small. It could be, I don't know, start from just making a mock-up, but like do the whole user research at least. So, or in the best case, literally find somebody to build with. And there are so many benefits, So otherwise, last thing that I would say, try not to burn out,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
this whole process of applying for a job is like very difficult, especially if you're doing this every day, whole day, 7 days a week, and getting rejections. It's just very difficult time you have to overcome. So try not to burn out. And what contributes to less anxiety and less stress is actually talking to people, building things,
Helping
just
people. Yeah.
helping people. Exactly. So try to diversify your activities, even though you have to be focused on kind of getting a job. Try to diversify the things that you do during the day,
Yeah.
because to keep
That's
sanity.
That's super inspiring. I definitely agree. I definitely agree about building something. And last night, I found a good phrase on my LinkedIn newsfeed. It's called "hire yourself." Yeah, I was so just impressed by this phrase. I read multiple times. Hire yourself. You want to be hired by someone? Just hire yourself first. Yeah, start doing
Exactly.
something. Yeah, like build something. You don't even need to code. There are a lot of no codes, programs,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
you don't even need to like code. You can do, as you mentioned, like user research, validate your hypothesis, create mockups. I don't know, do whatever you want. Like build a shop on Shopify or Etsy. Yeah, start selling something. Like launch YouTube channel. It's also building something from scratch. Yeah, you don't need to coding experience for that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great advice. Hire yourself.
Hire yourself before somebody else hires you.
Yeah.
Be your first employer.
Yeah. And then you don't even need to be hired by someone else. Yeah, because I'm already employed. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe you can recommend any resources, books, articles, something to read about how to be a product manager at startup.
Mm.
Or maybe learning more about product
Well,
management.
yeah, I like the book Inspired,
Yeah.
from Marty Kagan.
Marta
And
Kagan, yeah.
yeah, otherwise join my community side project to build projects. There are also great communities actually for product managers. I think one is called Product Buds, and it's specifically for aspiring PMs who are looking for their first job. Yesterday, I learned about another resource which I have just checked, and it looked awesome. I think it's called Share Bird. This is a community also for product managers, for product marketing managers, for UX designers. So it's like combined, but you can define which kind of specific area you're interested in. And this is like a nice forum, and people are very collaborative. It's kind of like peer learning, which is also great. So this is what I would recommend.
Cool. I will leave links also at the description. All
Awesome.
right. So yeah, thank you so much, Polina, for such a nice conversation. Very inspiring. I hope Polina inspired you, inspired, not expired. Yeah, inspired you as well as someone else. If you like this episode, please like, comment, share with friends. If you have any question, you can reach out Polina or me. I will leave Polina's contact on the description to this video. If you'd like to be a guest, please reach out to me. If you'd like to just contact me, please go to annanaumova.com and you can find all information about myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Polina. Thank you, everyone, for watching that, and see you next week.